New York City is getting older. From 2000 to 2010, the population here over age 60 grew 6 times faster than the city overall. And all the projections are that we'll see an even grayer 5 boroughs in the future. As great as it is that people are living longer and staying in the city as they age, rates of elder abuse are rising along with the number of senior citizens. As part of our week on aging here on BK Live, let's talk about what elder abuse is and what we can do about it. With Bobbie Sackman, Associate Executive Director of Public Policy at LiveOn-NY. Hello, Bobbie. Cheryl Lee, Brooklyn Project Director of the Elder Abuse Program at JASA. Welcome to the show, Cheryl. And Ayana Robertson, attorney with the Foreclosure Prevention Project at Brooklyn Legal Services. Thanks very much for being here. Bobbie, let's start with the most simple question. What is elder abuse?
Well, elder abuse is when somebody that you have a relationship of trust with abuses you. It's mostly financial exploitation. It could be physical, sexual, emotional, and a combination thereof. Like many abuses, you will be isolated. It's hard for you to be in contact with other people. Also, you may be dependent on that person. Sadly, most elder abuse is done by family members, by adult children, by grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and others. It is sometimes by home care aides as well, but it is mostly family, and no one wants to turn their family in. And so this is still very much a problem in the shadows right now. So
what's an example of physical elder abuse that anyone on the table has seen? Any cases come to mind?
Well, at JASA, we get a lot of our physical abuse cases from the Brooklyn DA's office because we work closely with them. So it's already risen to the level of being a crime. So now we go in to see what interventions we can put into place because maybe the abuser did provide some semblance of care for the person. So we'll see what we could put in, to take that, take up that space. But generally, most abusers don't provide any care for
That's interesting.
For the client.
And Ayana, I know in your line of work, what you see is the financial side of this, or at least one aspect of the financial side. Talk about how elder abuse and foreclosure intersect.
So senior homeowners tend to have a lot of equity in their home because they've been there for quite some time. And so what we're seeing is individuals, whether it be a family member or some other person who comes in and says, I can help you manage your day-to-day expenses, or I'll provide a certain service to you, and although you can't afford it because of your limited fixed income, here's a way that we can get you there. And what they will do is they will convince the homeowner to take out a mortgage, for example. Reverse mortgages are very popular with the senior community, and in a reverse mortgage you're essentially drawing against the equity in your home. The individual will say, well, give me a lump sum, and frequently they take that lump sum and the senior never gets the services that they desire, and sometimes they didn't necessarily need the reverse mortgage in the first place. We're also seeing instances where individuals will execute a power of attorney, which gives them the ability to then enter into various agreements on behalf of the senior, and the senior is never aware of it.
Are there other forms of financial elder abuse people should be aware of? Let's say you're not a homeowner. Does that mean you are immune from financial elder abuse?
Well, not at all. First of all, there was a state study that showed that only 1 out of every 44 cases of financial elder abuse across the state even get reported, whether it's to the police, social services, medical, professionals, et cetera. So, again, it's very underreported. Sometimes you're in a family, and even though you may not have a lot of money, the consistency of that Social Security check every month, or if you have a pension and other income, can become very desirable to your family members. And so they begin to take the person's money and not utilize it in the way it should be used. And
it could also be something as simple as adding someone's name to your bank account. That the bank can't differentiate whose money it is, so if you add someone's name to your account, they could literally go in the next day and withdraw the money, and then where does that leave you? We see a few of those cases. Also power of attorney abuses, where you make someone your power of attorney. When you're going into the hospital, they tell you, all right, fill out your power of attorney, your healthcare proxy, all of this paperwork, but not really explaining what that entails and what it means. So we see a few cases where powers of attorney exceed their authority. They literally clear out the person's bank account, they add their names, they try to sell their homes under the guise of being their power of attorney.
We've been talking about we've been hearing more about elder abuse in the past few years, and do we think that's because there actually are more cases because there's more elderly people or aging people, or is that a reflection of us just being more aware of the problem and starting to talk about it? What is the trend that we're seeing?
I think it's a little bit of everything. As you started this segment with the numbers of seniors in Brooklyn, Brooklyn has the most seniors of any of the boroughs, and the numbers across the city are just skyrocketing. So I think, unfortunately, it brings more elder abuse with it. I think a lot of the work that has been done by advocates and service providers and legal services, for example, has also helped bring it out of the shadows. There's also been reports that have been done by the state, and our organization developed a roadmap on elder abuse. So I think it's beginning to get through the cracks to open up and let people in the city know we've got a very serious problem here.
Ayana, the people that you see who become victims, do you have a sense of why they're targeted? Is it because they're seen as physically weak? Is it because they're dealing with, in some cases, first stages of dementia? Is it because they're too trusting? Does anything sort of mark someone as a potential elder abuse victim other than just that they are older than us?
Unfortunately, there is not just one factor. It's actually a combination of all of the things that you've mentioned. Senior homeowners have a lot of equity, so that's a lot of money. With all the changes that we're seeing in Brooklyn, that makes them very attractive. Then we're also talking about individuals who have fixed limited income in terms of pension or Social Security, and so someone will come in and say, I can make your day-to-day easier. And a lot of seniors that I've encountered say, I don't want to be a burden to my family, so they try to fix it on their own without necessarily consulting someone, such as the services that we have in the city or Brooklyn Legal Services, just to walk through the ins and outs of what they're actually undertaking. So I think it's just a combination of everything.
I want to ask you about caretakers, because you mentioned that situation my own family's in. And we hear about that a lot, folks my age and a little bit older taking care of parents and uncles and that kind of thing. And there's obviously a lot of pressure in that. Do you feel like people who are in that situation and become elder abusers, are they driven by exploitation or a sense of desperation that they are trying to deal with the burdens of being a caretaker? In other words, not that there's an excuse, but is the pressure of caretaking something that kind of drives someone from being a caretaker to being an abuser, or is there another explanation for it typically?
Well, I guess if you look at the majority of caretakers, they're not abusers. So therefore, I wouldn't equate caretaking with abuse, being an abuser. But the fact that most abusers come from a place of a trusted relationship as a caretaker, of course, that your family member has a trust in you, and then that's how you can, develop that exploitation. I don't know, from the abusers we deal with, they have mental illness, they have drug addiction, they have their own financial burdens. So those things more so seem to play into why they become abusers. That shared living situations, they lose their apartment, so now they're coming to live with mom and dad, so those factors.
That's a factor.
Yes.
So public agencies that have responsibility for elder abuse, the police, the DAs, some of the financial agencies, how have they done in responding to this threat? Do they get it? Are they beginning to respond to it appropriately?
I think what we're seeing is yes. I think we still have a long mountain or high mountain to climb, but we have seen some positive signs from the New York Police Department. Very recently, they launched a program where eventually all the police precincts will have 2 crime victim advocates, one just for domestic violence and elder abuse and the other for general crime. And the advocates work for Safe Horizons, so they're not police officers. And I know Cheryl was saying that she already has gotten some referrals from that. And that's really terrific. We are actually just finishing off a training video with the NYPD that they will use at roll call and other trainings that they do to train officers on what are the signs of elder abuse. The governor in his budget put in language for financial exploitation to address that problem and to make it easier for banks and financial institutions when they suspect have suspicious activity going on that they can then report and disclose information. So we're hoping that will be passed, and that would also open up a more seamless system. So I think we're beginning to see some responses. I think there's still a lot of cracks in the laws and the programs and the funding for frontline services to help intervene.
Mm-hmm.
And actually in Brooklyn, we have a lot of resources, that are developing. We have the Brooklyn MDT team, multidisciplinary team that has individuals from various agencies speaking about elder abuse cases, to see how we can come together and alleviate some of what's going on with these high-level cases. We also have the Homebound Project with Family Court to help seniors get access to family court. Whereas if you're homebound, how are you going to get to court to file order of protection against someone? So we actually go out into the home. We work with our attorney, and a social worker and an attorney will work for the initial appearance in order to help that senior secure an order of protection.
You make house calls.
Exactly.
So, Ayana, someone feels like they might be a victim of elder abuse, or they see a family member, a neighbor, a friend, the kind of abuse you'll deal with. What's your advice to a person? What should someone do to report it, to take action?
I think the first thing to do is to reach out. Do not hesitate to reach out immediately. The sooner someone reports it, the sooner we can start investigating. Our office absolutely works with the DA's office. We work with the sheriff's office. If documents have been filed, it runs certain statute of limitations that we have to get ahead of. And so I think as soon as you are aware of something, reach out, and we will coordinate with other organizations, absolutely, to make sure that you get the help that you need.
And if you are, just to speak to an overarching threat that the city's dealing with these days, if you are a person who is undocumented, any concerns about coming forward? Should people feel comfortable doing that? What advice do you have for folks who are not in New York with papers who are suffering from elder abuse?
Well, currently for our services, we don't ask immigration status. That has no bearing on us providing you with services.
And language access. I mean, obviously, elders of all stripes could be suffering this. If you speak a language other than English, how is that handled?
You have that program with the Asian Women's Center.
Yes, we have a program with the Asian Women's Center. We also utilize the language line, and we have social workers who speak a few languages in our program.
One of the things we were talking about earlier amongst ourselves was the challenge of reaching older adults in immigrant communities because of cultural differences in what's acceptable behavior. You certainly can't walk in probably and use the term elder abuse.
Exactly.
That's not going to resonate. So there are, besides language, there's also a lot of cultural challenges that organizations have been working on for a while now to help sort of drill down and be able to make it easier to access into different communities around the city.
So the graying of the population is, that's a fact that's not going to go away, which is fortunate for all of us in our own ways. Do you feel this problem is something that's always going to be there, or are we going to see some sort of evolution where eventually we figure out a more humane way individually to deal with elders and we see this recede, or is this kind of going to be something that we're always going to have?
I think there's a combination of things. I think one of the things, if you look at the long road that people in the domestic violence arena have led, and they still have many more miles to go. I think it is a problem that sadly is going to be with us for a while. We like to look at what the domestic violence arena has done and see what lessons could be learned and where there's crossover and where there's not sometimes. I think also a lot of it has to do with ageism and the image of older adults and being taken advantage of, and the older adults themselves out of fear of being able to stand up for themselves. I know one of the things JASA and some other groups do is they run support groups for elder abuse victims, so it helps them to get, makes them stronger. I imagine they faced many emotional problems, and
because unfortunately, a lot of our clients, people we encounter, they just feel it's them, and they're embarrassed, they're ashamed, they don't want to come forward, to say what's going on.
So real quick lightning round, a phone number or a website, someone who's watching this, suffering this problem now, where should they go?
Well, one way is to call 311, and those reports will eventually be directed to the New York City Department for the Aging. It's confidential, and they will refer out to different agencies around the city based on where you live.
And with JASA, we have a helpline. It's 212-273-5272. If you want to refer to JASA, and a social worker will go out and we will do an investigation.
311?
I actually think 311 is probably the best source because they will connect you with legal services such as my office or any other office that's available in the city. They can also call my office directly, 718-237-5500.
And if you're interested in public policy and advocacy and that side of it, please contact LiveOn-NY. We could also refer you to agencies around the city.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much for talking about this important issue. Please keep us posted as we're all getting older, hopefully. And we'll be seeing more of this and the good part of being older, too.